Hi there. Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks is an exciting new digital opportunity to obtain mentoring to help you improve your modeling. You will meet talented modelers and manufacturers from all over the world who share their model building skills and artistic advice. Improve your modeling and increase the confidence in your modeling efforts. Share your building efforts with fellow modelers and have some fun doing it. The shows are live on Zoom and YouTube, so be sure to join in and ask your questions. Now here is New Tracks founder and your host, Jim Kello, MMR.
Well, welcome. I really do appreciate you joining us this evening. Hope you'll come back often. Hope you'll tell your friends about us so that they can join us. This show is all about mentoring. We like to think it's where mentors can help you build better. It's like someone once said, how do you start a trip of 1,000 miles? Well, you take one small step at a time. I like to think of our show in those kind of terms, because what we try to do in each show is give you some tips and the benefit of the advice and counsel of some people who have spent maybe almost all their life building models. And hopefully some of what they have learned, you can benefit from and make your journey to becoming an excellent modeler just a little bit easier. So with that said, I'd like to turn to Father Ron Walters for our evening prayer. Father Walters is not able to be with us this evening, but he has sent us a recording that we'd like to play for you at this time.
O God, as we express our creativity by creating in miniature the world around us, may we marvel at the beauty and genius which created the world and instilled in us a portion of your great knowledge and wisdom. Give success to the work of our hands, O God. Amen.
Thank you so much, Father Ron. Before we start some announcements here, I do want to talk about the Hobby Manufacturers Association, which New Tracks is privileged to be a member of. And I really want to thank them for the help that they're giving New Tracks in the promotion of what we're trying to accomplish with our shows. We're going to be in several of their publications, and they couldn't have been nicer about offering their help to us. And we have, if you go to our website, Jim Allen, who is our webmaster, has put up a posting about the HMA on our website. So to the leaders of that organization and their executive director, thank you so much for your help for New Tracks. And this is our way on our website of trying to reciprocate. Well, our first announcement is about a new series we started on every other Thursday evening called Modeling Lifestyle. And I'd like to run a short video for you to show you about what this is about.
Welcome to the Modeling Lifestyle, where we celebrate how modelers have embraced their modeling and friendships as a lifestyle. We discuss how modeling can become a life passion and lead to lifelong friendships. The goal of the Modeling Lifestyle is to preserve the modeling and interests of leading modelers in the modeling industry. The Modeling Lifestyle is sponsored by NGMC, who believes that through bringing hobbyists together with both information and modeling, the hobby will grow stronger with more model builders than ever. NGMC, which started as Narrow Gauge Modeling Company, is focused in 1/4 inch scale across hobbies. NGMC is a market leader in 1/4 inch scale with a range of products from over 50 vendors. In 2021, NGMC became the largest reseller of out-of-production model paint in North America with over 9,000 bottles in stock. Join us every other Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the next Modeling Lifestyle.
Well, that's what it's all about. Many of us, if not all of us, have heard of people like John Allen, Armstrong, some of the real greats of our hobby in the past, and we'd love to have met them. And that was the impetus for starting the Thursday evening shows, to try to introduce you to some of the real leaders in our hobby in this part of the 21st century, and people that once they're gone, however long their life is, hopefully everybody that sees our shows will be able to say, yeah, I met that person, if it was only on Zoom, and had a chance for an hour, hour and a half to hear from him and to actually see him tell us about what he's achieved in modeling, why he's done the things that he's done, and how he has done the things that he's done. That's what the shows are all about. We have one tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be live on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling. And it starts, as I say, at 7 p.m. And our guest is Tom Farrel. Tom is what I would consider 100% scratch builder. And he's building a brand new layout in a new home that he's just moved into. And he's going to show you a lot of the models that he's going to be using on that layout. And you're going to meet a person who I think is just a fantastic modeler, but also a very fantastic spokesperson for our hobby, particularly in the OM30 arena. So I'm really excited to have him on the show and to talk with him. And I hope that you'll join us tomorrow at 7:30. And we have a short video that will introduce you a little bit to who Tom Farrel is.
Join the modeling lifestyle at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on August 11th, where we will feature the modeling lifestyle of Tom Farrel. ON30 modeler Tom is creating a complete scratch-built layout. Join Tom and his friends as they discuss his amazing modeling. Live stream video available on the New Tracks Modeling YouTube page.
I love the sound of a whistle.
And so that again is tomorrow evening on our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have another new segment on our Wednesday shows that's going to be starting on October the 19th. And it's going to be called Petticoat Junction News. It's about women in model railroading and women modelers. It's going to be headed up by a lady by the name of Kristen Kermit. She and her husband David own a company, a 3D printing design and printing company. And I'm really excited about doing this because of the response that we're getting so far has been more than I thought that it would be. I know that there are a lot of women out there that are involved in the hobby. And I just don't think that they get the recognition. And frankly, a lot of us maybe don't benefit from the knowledge and the skills that they can demonstrate for us. So she's going to start the show on October the 19th is the first one. And then it'll run every 2 weeks after that on our Wednesday evening shows. It's at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Next, I'd like to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart and a lot of people on the show, and that's that we need help. Every time we turn around, we need something done, and there's only so much time in the day, and we've only got so many volunteers. And the more that we do, and the more that we try to respond to the people that have ideas for us and suggest that we try certain things, the greater the workload seems to be. So we need volunteers. So if you like what you're seeing and think that it's worthwhile and want to see it continue and blossom and grow, then we need your help. And we sure would appreciate anything that you can do for us, any amount of time that you could give to us. And if you can just let me know, then we'll talk and see what your interests are and make sure that you get to help in an area that you're comfortable with and that's exciting for you. My email again is jimkello@newtracksmodeling.com. And I look forward to hearing from you because sincerely, I know I talk about this a lot, but really we do need a lot of volunteers to produce the show. And we're not an organization, we're just a group of people that have either found the show and somehow, or once we found it, we stayed with it. So if you want to stay with it, if you want to see it continue and grow as it has been growing in the past, then we need your help. So I look forward to hearing from many of you. Next, let's talk about a popular segments of our show, and that's called build-along segments. We have, I think, 3 of them start ongoing tonight, but the ones that I want to talk about are the ones that are coming up now. We have one starting on August the 17th, next week. This is the first model ship one that we've done, and this is Seaport Model Works. And this is going to be done by the owner of the company, Bruce Nicholson. And he's going to be building one of his waterline kits of a 53-foot coastal steam passenger ferry. One of the things that Bruce wants to make sure that everybody understands, that building this kind of a ship model is no different really than building a structure. The bottom of the model, I mean, it's a molded piece. So it's really the floor of the model. And once you have done that, then the rest of it is like building a structure, putting the structure on top of it, and you have the ship model. So I hope that everybody is interested in doing this. I think it's an excellent model and something that was used all over the United States. And therefore, I hope that this is of interest to a lot of you. Next thing we have starting August the 24th is Apogee Locomotive Works. And that owner is Aaron Potaski. And he's going to build one of what he calls one of his box cab 28-ton locomotives. It's the first locomotive that we've done on the show. The beauty of this is it can be detailed in so many different ways that you can make this into just about anything that you really want. And Aaron is a young modeler, but he's just an excellent modeler. And I think that you're going to really be impressed with him and hopefully interested in this modeling. Next up is Berkshire Valley. They start August the 31st. Richard Rands owns Berkshire. Martin Breckbilt, MMR, is going to be building one of his ON30, ON3 OR cars. And I know that this is going to be a good one because so many people in ON30, I think, will be interested in doing this along with Martin. Then we have September the 7th, Motrak. And this is Jeff Adams, who owns the company. Jeff Adam, who owns the company, and Greg Cassidy, who's going to be building the Alton Fire Station in S scale. The model's available in all 4 scales, N, HO, S, and O. Got a great discount for it. And I think that this is another model that an awful lot of you will be interested in. And I really do appreciate Jeff and Craig coming back on the show. This is not their first time doing one of these kind of models and build-alongs for us. And I really do appreciate them coming back. Then we have Sylvan Models on the same date, September the 7th. And this is Claire Gilbert, who owns the company. And he's going to be building a C&E 1937 boxcar. And Bill Davis is going to be the one actually doing the building of the car. And it's going to be both in HO and O scale. And Bill's going to build one of each in the 2 different scales to show you the difference and what's involved in building this car in the 2 different scales. So I think that ought to be interesting. And I really do appreciate Claire and Bill for wanting to do that. So that takes care of our upcoming build-alongs. The next My Build is August the 17th. And this is something that I promote and I'm really excited about, because it gives the modelers who are watching our show an opportunity to show us what they're building, and to be an active participant in talking about their modeling and giving other people tips on what they did and how they did it. So if we could run the Dan Darby video. Dan and his wife Amy, who own Model Resource LLC, are the sponsors for this show, and this segment of our show. And they own both of the magazines that my articles are published in. So I really do appreciate their support for our efforts, as well as publishing my articles. So if we could run that video, please.
Welcome to the world of scale, O&S railroading. We are your resource for all O&S scale modeling. Both our magazines are advertiser supported and free to read online, download as a PDF, or even print. All advertisers are hot linked to their website, so if you see something you like, just click. Please check out our websites for the current issues. All back issues available free for the O-Scale Resource and the S-Scale Resource magazines. And, if you are a manufacturer, distributor, or retail establishment, please contact us through our website for advertising opportunities.
Chris Corse, who owns Conowingo Models, is the person who is moderator for our My Bill segments of the show. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us tonight. He had to work. But we do have a slide that I'd like to put up. And Alan, if you can put Chris's email address in the chat window, then whoever has a model that they would like to show next week on the My Bill, if you contact Chris and send him some information about the model, 2 or 3 sentences, as well as a photo of the model, then he'll make sure that you're scheduled to be on that part of the show. And we'll introduce you then next week, and you can discuss your model and share it with us. As I say, this is really a learning experience for a lot of people to see what other modelers are building and how they're doing it. And I really hope that you have an interest in sharing your work with us next week. So with that said, let's turn to starting the show. And the first guest I'd like to introduce is Gary Shurgold for his bits and pieces. So Gary, welcome this evening.
Thanks, Jim. Okay. Potential railroad components and everyday objects. What we're going to talk about tonight is, on bits and pieces, is very thin veneer cardstock. If you go to a woodworking show, usually you can pick these up. They're in bundles of 100, 200, 500. They're very cheap. Very thin veneer. You can see they're about 3.5 inches.
You're not sharing, Gary.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should be. Here we go. Sorry. Oh, man. This is supposed to work with one click and it's not doing it.
On the screen.
Can you see it on the screen?
Yes.
Can you see the slides? Sorry. Can you see the slides, Alan?
I see potential railroad components and everyday objects.
Okay, sorry. I'm clicking the wrong buttons here. This was supposed to be a 2-click button thing, but for some reason it's not working for me. Anyway, bits and pieces. Again, we go to these thin veneer cardstock. What these are used for is business cards for woodworkers. And if you go to a woodworking show, you can pick these up. They come in bundles, as you can see. There's quite a few of them in a bundle. They're very cheap. I paid $1 for each bundle. And what I do with these is when I get models that have cardboard roofs or whatever, the cardboard after a period of time will warp. So what I do with them is I utilize them for reinforcing and sometimes replacing the cardboard on models. Now they can be cut up into thinner strips. You can see here, here's a full sheet, and here's some leftover sheets that I use. And what I do with them is I use them for making shingles on buildings. Here you can see I've taken one of them and scribed lines. This is 1 foot by 1.5 foot shingles I'm going to be making. I cut them out and I end up with a big pile, like as you can see here in the little dish. And then one by one, I have reinforced this roof, which was cardboard at one time, with these veneer sheets. And then I start laying them one by one, starting from the bottom, working your way up, and then down the other side. Here's the original roof that used to be on it. It's sort of a plastic type shake roof. Also use them for thin strips on the top for the covering. And you can see here, I've gone both sides. And here's the little veranda roof finished. A little bit of weathering. And you come out with a nice roof and a nice model that's not going to warp. And that's the bits and pieces for this week, Jim.
Well, I thank you so much, Gary. That's a
You're
neat
welcome.
idea, and it looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, now let's move to one of our build-alongs with Darryl Jacobs, who owns Internet Interaction Hobbies, that he's building one of his models on the show. So Darryl, welcome.
Hey guys, good evening. Glad I could be here. Glad you're all here. I'm just going to share my screen here. In theory.
We're glad you're glad, Gary.
And let's see, the technology is working. There we go. So this is the fourth and final chapter of Keegers Garage and Repair. Tonight we're going to talk about window dressings, a little bit of detail about roofing, lighting, some exterior details, and finish up with the driveway deck. So this kit is very similar in both HO and O scale. The main difference with the O scale one primarily is the walls are doubled up, which we talked about previously. But other than that, the kit is basically the same and just scaled up a bit. So last time we talked about the front room, which has an partial interior detail. And thinking about the rest of the building, if you're going to have any LED or lighting in the back of the building, either you detail it yourself, put some interior detail in, or what I've chosen to do here is to simply put some blinds, and they were just cardstock in the window at a various level. And you can see here how how those blinds show up kind of in a random fashion. So it kind of gives some idea that something's happening inside the building. Same over the door. I just left the glazing covering on, and then I used a piece of tissue on the side windows and just curled it to make it look like a curtain on the side windows. So it adds just a little bit of life to the building and something simple to do before you go ahead and button up the inside. So the roofing, it's black craft paper that comes with the kit. The newer kits that we've released are pre-laser cut strips for you. The older kits are just a sheet of paper that you have to cut down to rolls of tar paper. I find the best way to go with tar paper roofing is to take the sheet and using a sponge, just kind of dapple some color onto it. Typically a grays, 2 or 3 different grays, kind of do it and just kind of model it. And then when you slice up your strips, you kind of randomize them. So kind of mix them up a bit, don't put them in the same order. And it just adds more texture to the finish on the building. So a little trick here that I've learned recently, I think it was Jason Jensen, I'm going to credit to, but something I do with my tar paper roofing now is I place it on the edge of the desk or on the edge of my cutting board, and I just drag nail file up and down this way, back and forth across just the edge of it, kind of at a low angle, and you'll see over here the unfinished or the untrialed edge, and then you wind up just with some tears and things, and it kind of simulates that tar, but also simulates a bit of wear on the roofing as you go. So as long as you're dragging your file back and forth this way, you get a pretty good effect across the roof. Then you go ahead and take these strips and just overlap them lightly, gluing up the roof panels. Once you're done with those roof panels, what I do is to trim it, I hold my knife at a slight angle to the edge, just so I can get a little bit of overhang on the tar paper, and that way you can take your fingernail on the back of your fingernail and just burnish around the edges so that you get this fold over effect on the edge of the building. It's kind of a nice effect. Plus, I leave the top end a little bit long and fold that upwards so that you can. Because most times the tar is wrapped up against the back edge of the building, so it kind of adds a nice effect there. And I find doing this, you can get that nice tar effect without having to go back and paint ungodly seams, because every time I do it, at least it makes it look way over scale and oversized. So on the left here, we've just done some dry brushing, so just streaking some dry brushing back and forth on the panels. And then once again, after that's done, I just take that nail file, and just strake it up the roofing, and kind of gives it a nice worn effect. And the more dry brushing you do, the more it's going to fade and look like a faded roof, aged roof. So then a little bit about lighting. The kit includes an LED strip light and some wiring for the interior kit. It's just a very basic kit to do. You do need to do a little bit of soldering. Not going to go into the details here. I think that would be a great seminar, Jim. If somebody does a basic soldering seminar on the show, it would be fantastic. So, but basically, to start with, what I always recommend is a little bit of flux on the leads, these positive and negative leads on the sheet. These LED strips come in strips of 3 LEDs per panel. So usually it comes in a long roll, and you nip it off into every 3 LEDs. As long as you get the 3 LEDs and the resistor on it, it'll hook up to anything around 12 volts, 9 to 14 volts. So the first thing you do is put some flux on the positive and negative area, some flux on the wire leads that you've cut off as well. And that's the number one fail point I find, is people don't use flux. And then you got to overheat things, you start burning things, and it gets rather difficult. So just a little bit of flux, and just touch it with a bead of solder on the 2 leads on the LED. And same with the wire leads, pre-tin them by putting a little bit of solder on each lead that's been fluxed already, and then just hold it over the end of the LED and just touch it with a hot iron, and you'll find it'll flow instantly. So a little bit of practice makes that easy. The LEDs have a self-adhesive backing on them. I always recommend in the building to use a self-adhesive backing to set it in place, but then use some glue. Because inevitably the Chinese, even though it says it's 3M backing, sometimes it's not as good in the long term, and it can peel up. So I always set them in place, and then I glue them in place. So here you can see we line it up in that notch that we put in the roof in the earlier episode. Just glue that around, and you can see I put some glue all around the LED here to set it in place. Set that down. There's some pre-drilled or pre-laser cut holes in the bottom of the building to allow you to feed your feed lines through, and you just feed that through and install the roof panel. So the roof trim on the main part of the building is laser cut for you already, and because it's a fairly thin trim to match the original prototype. And on the garage section and the shed, there's scale 2x8s that you use to set your trim on the building. So you just go ahead and put that roof on and put that trim on. Then you insert the castings for the chimney and the roof. The back stoop has a cantilevered laser cut overhang. So you just got to set those in. There's little notches on the laser cut part to tell you how far to inset them into the wall. So you just go ahead and glue those in place, and a little bit of glue in those four corners. Then there's a spreader that goes across the front of the stoop. And lastly, you put the roof on the over top of the stoop. So the kit has, we supply some wire, some titchy phosphorus bronze wire to bend up some gooseneck lamps. So you just simply bend those around the template that's provided, and trim them to size, and glue up your lampshades and put them in over top of the garage door opening and over top of the front of the building. And I think there's one in the back as well that you can install. So the canopy is optional in the building. It can either be rolled up or extended out. Here you have a picture of the O scale one. It is another difference in the O scale kit versus HO, where the awning is actually 2 layers. So in this case, the red layer here that you're seeing is overlapped over, so it's a laser cut piece. The red pieces are laser cut out, and you simply overlap that and lay it over top of the yellow underhanging one. So it adds kind of a nice 3D effect on the O scale canopy. The HO one is just a single piece of paper that has to be cut out. But it's kind of nice to add these little flaps. You can kind of bend them in different positions to show it kind of flowing in the wind as it would in real life as well. And lastly, there's a little a deck that's out front in the O scale version. This deck is pre-laser cut, and in the HO scale version, you actually put it together with scale 2x4 or 4x8s, I should say, over top of a supplied platform. And it just kind of adds a nice detail. The original had a raised deck because it had a slope in the building, so that this deck was floating out and needed to be a planked deck for working on the vehicles. And you put it together, and then you just kind of finish off with a few signs in the windows and things, and there you have it. So that kind of completes the kit. As you say, you can go to our website and download the instructions. Even if you're not building the kit, there's a lot of good information in our instructions, so you can have at it and have a go at playing around there. So that's it. If there's any questions, please go ahead and ask, or we can put them in the chat, and I'll answer them as the show progresses. So back to you, Jim.
Anybody have any questions for Darryl?
Darryl, I was just wondering, how do you do the rolled up awning effect?
Well, the rolled up awning, I should say, that's this piece on it. Oh, I don't know if that's gonna, under here. So
We can't see it, Darryl.
Oh, you're not seeing the share screen here, or?
Yes. Well, finished model is what we were seeing.
Oh yeah. Basically, I don't have a picture of the rolled up version, but you just take about the area that has the little curved. I'll just stop sharing here so you can see me. You can see me waving my arms. So the front of that awning that has the little furled bottoms, you just take that and wrap it around a skewer or a toothpick to get a nice sharp edge. So you don't want to use the whole canopy. You just want to use the very last bit with those furls hanging down. And that'll give the scale effect of the canopy being rolled up. And you can take those same wires or wrap it around the wire, I should say, that's for the canopy awning support. know if that made any sense to Alan.
Well, the reason I asked is what I'm doing with your kit. It's very important that one sees inside the windows, and that's all I'm going to say.
Right. Yeah. The other thing, if you notice on the, if you look at the building, the original building, it actually was a gas station, but the awning says confectionery on it. So the sign above it said gas station, the awning said confectionery. So, and I think Bill Davis in the O Scale, I don't know which, if it's coming out this month or next month in O Scale magazine, but he did a review of our kit there, and he did it as a confectionery. So it's kind of a different picture. Looking forward to seeing what you do with it.
Very much. I really do appreciate you doing this. And listen, you mentioned the soldering, the basic soldering. You interested in doing that sometime?
Yeah, I could put a little quick seminar. Maybe when I get back in September after the narrow gauge convention, I'll pick up on my details, and maybe that'll be good video to do for soldering.
Sounds good to me. Thanks so much, Darryl. I really do appreciate it.
Cheers.
Well, now let's turn to another one. And this one has been exciting for me. This is how to do CAD drawings. And Earl Hackett is doing a fantastic job, and we're getting an awful lot of people viewing this segment on the shows. So Earl, I will turn it over to you for how to do CAD drawings.
Okay, let's get this screen share up here. Share. And I'm going to start with my little PowerPoint. There we go. This is the third installation. And what we're going to do here, we're going to construct the bridge, half of the bridge. So we're going to build the floor beams, stringers, and knee braces. And we take that thing and mirror it, and you have a whole bridge right there. We're going with the half bridge because it gives you more visibility. You can see what's going on. You can position things better than if you try to build the whole thing full width and then move the girder. That would just be a bit of a nightmare. So if you have any questions, again, here's the place where you can contact me, ntbridge924@gmail. And I can take a look at your work and see what kind of problems you're having. These are the parts. The floor beam is the larger one. It goes from side to side. The stringer runs the length of the bridge and ties all the floor beams together. And the knee brace is a piece that looks sort of like this. And they go on top of the with the floor beams and help stiffen it and connect it to the girder. You're going to want to have these dimensions handy when you do it. And this one here, this is the final width of the thing. This gives you, I'm going to call this 13.2, it makes the math a lot easier to deal with. And, well, let's get on to it. We'll bring up, escape from this. I'll bring up, now, you probably want to take some screenshots of these. So I'm going to go back through them slowly so you can get some screenshots. Because these dimensions are really important to know. Okay. Let's get this guy up. And we'll go to Onshape. And I will sign in. Okay. As you can see, I have this one here. I practice before I do the show. I work on, that's what we're going to wind up with at the end of the day. Now, I gave you some homework to put a cover plate on the end here. And I haven't done it on this one. I did it on the practice one, but I'll put that on later. We're going to get started with the stringers and the beams. So let me, we're going to go to look at it from the front and yeah, we'll do it from the front. Okay, we're going to start by building the gotta get this up here on my other screen so I can see it. Start with the knee brace and pick up sketch. We're going to do it on the front plane, and we're going to do a line. This one here, we're going to actually have to sketch the darn thing. So we're going to start with just now notice I'm keeping that one horizontal. This one here doesn't make much difference. This one has to be horizontal. And then we're going to connect them. Now, this one here probably is not horizontal, so I'm going to, okay, so now that put a constraint on that as being horizontal. Now we're going to dimension them. We have dimensions for this one, this one, and this one. This one here, it's whatever it happens to be. So we're going to take our dimension tool, start with this one here. That is 7 millimeters. And then we'll go to this one here, which is 8.25. And this one is 1.8. All right, and that's whatever it is. And we'll say, give that a check. And we're going to extrude this. And I'm going to extrude this to be fairly thick. I'm going to extrude it to 0.4 of a millimeter. Because this really is a structural piece, and you know, this isn't steel. This is just plastic. So let's just check on it. That looks good. Go back to the front. Now, on the prototype, you would have reinforcing angles on all 3 sides here, as well as the top. I'm just going to put them on a couple sides because I'm never going to use this as a model. It's for an instructional video. So let's start with this one over here. We're going to use a tool that I haven't used before. We're going to sketch on this surface here, and we're going to use what they call an aligned rectangle. And this will create a rectangle whatever angle you want. So we're going to start with this corner. We're going to come up, and I'm not going to go to that corner because if I do, it'll define that point. I don't want that defined yet, as you'll see in a minute. We'll go to here, and then we come down to here. Now this is, that's 1. Okay, so now we can define some things. Measurement, this guy here, that's just 1 millimeter. Okay, now, this reinforcing angle, it's got to be trimmed to meet all the angles that we're dealing with here. So what we're going to do, we have here trim and extend. We're going to use that in a minute. But right now we're going to extend some lines so that they go as far as we need. We're going to actually extend them longer than we want. So we're going to extend this one, and we're going to extend this one. Okay, now we're going to take a line. We're going to go from this point to, well, just keep it parallel. Escape line. And we're going to go from, better make sure I get this right, line from here to there. And escape line. So Now comes the trim little thing. And you could run into trouble with this. Where'd it go? Here he is, trim. What it will do, it'll trim a line to wherever the next intersection is. So you trim that, this, 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 and this. And now we just say, okay, we're happy with that. I'm just going to fix it. So now we have our odd-shaped rectangle here. So we're going to check off on that. And we'll go to again to extrude this, and to keep the numbers. And oh, look at this. It says add. You do not want that. You want a new one. And watch. See if it. 0.2. Okay, still new. Okay, the little stinker keeps trying to plug it in there for me. Okay, we're going to do it. It's going to do it again. And this is these are 3 by 4 inch angles that they use. So I made this one 0.2. The actually the 4-inch length would be 1.2 in HO scale, or pretty darn close to that. So we're going to make another one, just the same thing we do with this, only much thinner. So we're going to do a sketch. We're going to sketch on this surface, and we're going to do another aligned rectangle. Exact same deal. To there and down here. Okay. Zoom in so we can get a close look at it. The only dimension we have to worry about is this one here, which is 0.25. Just to make it strong enough so it can survive. And we'll go. I'm going to do the extend thing again. This one. Yep, this one. And we're going to draw lines. Come on, there it is, escape line. And then down here, another line. Escape line. Okay. Now we get our trim little scissors out here. What happened?
Earl, is your sound off, or?
I think he might have crashed, Jim.
I think he looks frozen.
Let's do this. Let's come back to him when he gets his system back up and running. So let me go to our next portion of the show, and this involves remote operation switching with Heath. And Heath was here a couple of weeks ago and talked about his switching layout. He's back tonight, and we're honored to have Robert Darby, who has been our volunteer, that said that he would like to be the first one to actually operate on Heath's switching layout. So, Robert, thank you so much for doing this for us, and Heath, welcome.
Good evening, Jim. Hope everyone can hear me okay, and welcome all who is watching this content. Thank you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
A little bit about me first, real quick. I'm from the Napa Valley, the Napa Valley Model Railroad Historical Society. Been a member there for 35 years. So right now I've been also a train master, so I know a little bit about switching. And so I'm gonna pull up Heath's screen right now, or his time saver right now. And I'll share my screen here. Whoops, if I do it right. Let's see here. I had this almost ready to go. There it is. There it is. So what I did, you'll see on the lower right-hand corner.
No, we're not seeing it.
Not seeing it yet. Okay, hold on a second here. Oh, darn it all. Yeah, let's see here. Oops. Where did I pull it? Oh, darn it all, darn it all. Oops, I'll go over there. And share screen. Ah, that would help. Let's see here. Okay, and there's that.
Hey, Jim had a power failure. So I'm back up though.
We'll come back to you. We got to move on, so we'll be back to you, Earl.
Oh, all righty.
Let's see here. Oh, there we go. We're almost there. Sorry, guys. I'm a little new at this. Here, let me pull the other screen up, which is right there. There we go. We're getting there. So now you can see I've already pulled up Heath's humancity.org /time saver window here. And he's got 3 other windows, the camera, throttle, and turnouts. And so I've already pulled up the camera. You can see that on the top side. It's got a bird's eye view of the time saver layout.
I don't think you shared your screen. I think you shared just the Google window. So stop sharing, please.
All righty.
Okay, now what I want you to do is click share.
Click share. Okay.
And then when that opens up on the upper left, there's a bunch of pictures there. The upper left picture should say screen underneath it.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Double click that. There we go.
How's that? All right.
That's what we needed to see. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So anyway, here we go. So I'm going to pull up I haven't pulled up the throttle screen yet. Let me pull up the throttle screen real quick, and we'll get this on the move here. In the throttle screen, there is a little red button. That's turn the power on. So I'll turn the power on. Hold it for 2 seconds. And let's see if the power comes on. Yep, power's on. And I've got a list of the 2 cars. The challenge was over to the right-hand side there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw the switches. You always try to throw the switches first before you move. Prevent shorting. So let's see here. And should, yep, throw. And I got one to throw there. And I'm going to go after this orange box car first. So let me pull the throttle up. Whoops. And let's go the other direction, my other Ford. There we go. And really what I want to do is get that numbered car 3345. But first I want to get the 19040 out of my way first. So we'll go pick that car up. And we'll get it slowed down. All right, reverse the direction. And let's see here. You always kind of want to take it slow. And let's see here. Oops, come on, baby. Uh-oh, we got a dead spot. So anyway, where's I need my assistant, Mr. Heath here, and I guess he's not on board yet, but whatever my plan was to do in that T3 and I'm supposed to spot the that 3345 car at the middle position. So I want to put the 9040. Oh, there we go. It's moving now. And what's neat about this, I'm 3,000 miles away from this layout, and I'm online doing the switching through Heath's JMRI server. And I'll stop it. And I'll throw the switch. And I'm gonna, switch has been thrown. I'm gonna make my reverse movement. And hopefully, if everything works out okay, I'll hit the uncoupling ramp here in the middle, and I should be able to do it right here. And I hit stop at the right time. He has a little min down the ground, shows me kind of the center of the uncoupling ramp. Let's see if I got it. I probably didn't. Nope. So hopefully I'll get it here the second time. Pull up a little bit ways, and then oops, stop. And then we'll back up, and then we'll see if I can get this centered again here. I should slow it down a little bit when I'm creeping. Oops, a little bit more. Uh-oh, I think I hit the frog, and I forgot the frog. Yeah, he's not juiced the frogs yet, so that's one thing he has to do yet. So unfortunately, I think I'm stuck here right now. My idea was drop the 19040 on the T3-3, go get the, as per my switch list, go get the 345 in the main line, and then put it on as spotted on the T3-2 according to my list, and then go after the 3486. So he's done a real nice job of getting it put together. So I guess I'll have to send it back to you, Jim, right now. I'm kind of stuck here at a dead frog.
Well, Robert, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to Keith. I hope he, just had a work problem and couldn't be here this evening when he was supposed to, but maybe he can be here again. If you'd like to come back in 2 weeks, because I would like to see you operate on this thing, if you'd like to come back in 2 weeks and with Heath, and we'll reschedule you and try to do it then.
That'd be just fine. I appreciate that, Jim. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for volunteering. And I think this is going to be fantastic, but I do think that probably Heath needs to be here to, to get it going really for you.
Right.
So thank you so much, Robert. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so now let's go back to Earl Hackett if we can. Earl, assuming that you've got power again. You're muted, I think, Earl.
1 second. Okay. There we are. I'm back on Zoom again. Bring this up full screen. And we'll go to share screen. Share. Okay, and bring up, here we are. Okay. The nice thing about Onshape is when we lost power, I didn't lose any information. It was still all there when I brought it back up again. So that's something I wasn't expecting, but it's a nice feature. Okay, so here we are with these lines that have been extended, and we're going to go about close that out. Going to go back to sketch. Going back to this one here. Never done this before. Okay. And we should have our trim. Yes, there we are. A trim. Oh dear. I'm going to back out of this. Close this. Don't do that. I hate that. Okay. We'll start over again. It did not maintain everything the way exactly it was. So here we go again. We're going to put the flange on this guy here. So we're going to go back to a sketch. We're going to sketch on this surface here. And we'll again do the aligned rectangle. And we just set up this one measurement. That's 0.25. Never had a power failure like that before. So we want to go to extend to right here. And then we do a couple lines. Escape line. Oops. Phooey. Front. Push the wrong button. Line from here to about maybe there. Escape line. Trim. And we're going to trim this guy's up. And you got to find the, here he is. Trim. That. This. This. This, this, and this. We're just going to lock it in wherever it is. He's there. Check. Then we're going to do an extrude. That. New. Don't forget that. And we're going to go 1 millimeter. That gives us a 1.2 millimeter width on the flange, which is about 4 inches. Take a look. That looks good. Check. Okay. Now we need the flange on the other side here. So we're going to take part 3. That's the one we want. I'm going to translate it. Liner points from there to there. Copy. Check. And then we're going to take part 4. And we're going to translate that one over there. Translate liner points. There to there. Copy. Check. All right. That looks good. Front. And we just make them all into one piece. I like to keep the parts count minimal. And we'll do it. We can do another one down here. This is more less complicated. Where are we here? Sketch. This surface here. Plain rectangle. And I'll run it from there to. It's going to be about there. That's a nice number. Okay. And dimension 1. Check. Extrude. New. 0.2. Check. See if it looks good. That looks good. Front. And we'll do another sketch on here. Rectangle from there to there. Dimension. Let's see. 0.25. Check. Extrude this. 1. New. Check. Now I go around here. We're going to do the same thing again. Part 3. Translate liner points there to here. Copy. check. Part 4, translate line of points here to here, copy part. Okay, check. I'll go to the front. And we'll make this into a single piece again. Check. Okay, now we're going to do the floor beams. Go to the right side. Put one up and around in here somewhere. Now the floor beams, bring it up on the screen here. You could go through the sketching thing and outline it and then extrude the whole thing, but it's a lot easier just to do a bunch of rectangles. So we're going to sketch on this surface here. And go to a rectangle. And 0.25 by 3.6 dimension. 3.6. It's small, doesn't it? Here, 2.5. No. 0.25. Okay. Dimension 0.25. When you see me backing out of that, I'm just hitting the Control Z and it backs out one step at a time. And so if you make a mistake, that's a real quick way of getting out of it. Now, this one here, if I go back to my drawings, it's 59.5 millimeters long. So I want half of that. And if I get my pencil here, I'll quick figure that out. 59.5, 2, that's a 2, 975, 2970, is that right? 2, 19, that's a 9, carry a 1, 7, yep, and 5, yeah, 2975. So let's see, where are we here? We're going to extrude this 29.75. Okay, check. I'll look at it just to make sure it looks good. That looks pretty reasonable. Right. I wish it wouldn't change the zoom factor, but it does. And so we have another rectangle here. Sketch. There. This. And this one, if you take, see where we were here. That's 0.8 by 1.5. Dimension 0.8. And 1.5. Okay, just leave it where it is. There. Check. Extrude this. What did I say? It was 29.75. Check. And we have one more rectangle to make. Sketch on this surface here. This is the main, oh, Come here. This is the main plate. Oh, I hate when I push the wrong button. Okay, dimension. There we are. 0.4. And this one here is 5.25. Oh, pretty close. And we check this. And we extrude this. 29.75. Okay, check. So now we start building our floor beams. And we go to part 4. And we'll translate it. Liner points from midpoint to midpoint. I'm happy with that. And line, and we'll take part 5. Okay. And we'll translate liner points from midpoint to midpoint. Check. Now we'll take part 4. Yeah, 4. And we will translate liner points from midpoint to midpoint. Copy. Check. And we'll take part, which one is it? 4, 3. Part 3. Translate liner points from midpoint to midpoint. Copy. Check. Okay, the floor beam is built. Now we got to position it. And there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them along here. So if I go down here, I'm sort of curious about this line here. Measure. .2 millimeters. Okay, that's good. So what we're going to do, take this floor beam, and we're going to translate the, well, oops, wait a minute. Take the whole thing, make it one piece. So I'm just going to be moving one part at a time. Check. I'm going to translate it. Part 3. Yes, part 3. Right. Translate. Liner points from that center point there. So we get a line on this thing, angle on so I can see it, to center point there. Boom. Check. So that's a half beam, that's in. So now we're going to take this guy, we're going to make an array of them. Oh, don't do it that way. Okay. This is part 3. Oh, wait a minute. Little forgetfulness here. We're going to take this guy here, part 2, and we're going to translate him from, translate liner points there to the midpoint here. Check. I hate two of that. Going to join these together, Boolean join. And then we're going to translate them up to their proper position. That's part two. Okay. Now we take part two, and we're going to go zoom in here, translate, liner points from here to here. Now it's in the proper position. What's wrong here? Oh, I did a dumb thing. I used the wrong beam dimensions. Okay. I even practiced this yesterday so I wouldn't get it right. This is actually the stringer dimensions. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to put it on top. Part three. Rotate. Transform. Wait a minute. Yeah, transform. Where's rotate? Rotate, 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 rotate. Where'd it go? Rotate, there it is. Okay. Perspective. Axis. There. 90. Okay. Now it's pointing in the right way. I'll just extend it later on. Okay, let's get the right. Where to go? Left, right. There we are. I got to build the right beam this time. Floor beam. Again, we'll do it the same way as we did before. Sketch this plane. Dimension 3.6. Check. Extrude this 29.75. 0.75. Good. Okay, sketch. .5 by 0.8. Check. Extrude this 29.75, 0.75. Oh, come on. 29.75. Enter. Okay, check. That looks good. And then one more. Sketch down here. Rectangle. This is a big one. Dimension. There. 0.4. This is 8.75. Okay. Freeze it. Check. Extrude. 29.75. Enter, check. Okay. Part 5. I'm going to translate these guys here from liner points from there to there. Check. Part 6. Translate liner points from there to there. Check. Part 5. Translate liner points from there to there. Copy. Check. And part 4. Translate liner points from there to there. Check. Phooey. Part 4. I didn't copy it. Translate liner points from there to there. Copy the part. There you go. Okay. I'm going to have a problem there, but I'll fix it later. Boolean join. Check. Now who's up front? Measure. See what I did here. Rats. Okay. Something moved it. Yeah. Come on. Gonna have to do him over. Okay. Gonna have to do this a little differently. Okay. sketch. Rectangle. When you make mistakes, you can always fix them. What happened, I didn't notice it, but the part moved. So we're going to take this guy here, and we just position it. Check, extrude. I got the right one.
Earl, if we could come to a stopping point for tonight.
Yeah, we can stop. Yeah, we can stop here, and I'll pick this up on the next one because the next one is not very complicated.
Okay, why don't we do that? And maybe, you can take it from here and we'll just go from there for the next.
Yeah, that power failure sort of threw me off.
Yeah, no problem. But thank you so much for doing it. Go ahead.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, I thought some. Okay. Well, let me move on then to Father Ron Walters, who is building Paul Egret's service station in Card. And again, Father Ron could not be here tonight, but he has sent us a video of part 2 of his build in Card of this model. So let's see the video, please, Alan.
In this second part, I will show how I braced the walls, and I will show how I gave a primer coat to the walls both inside and out. Then I will show how I colored the walls to prepare them for signage. And finally, I will show how I scratch built the windows and doors. I mentioned in part 1 of this presentation that one thing you would need is 1/8 inch square strip wood. But if you have standard matches, not book matches, but the standard stick matches that come in a box with either strike on the box or otherwise, you can cut off the flammable head and use these as ways to brace the walls. Here is a photo of the bracing of the walls. Cardboard is stiff, but it is flimsy too. If bent too far, it will crease, and correcting a crease can be frustrating. Note that some walls do not have bracing at the edge of the walls. The purpose of the bracing is first and foremost to strengthen the walls. However, there is a secondary reason for bracing, and that is to have some way to glue two walls together. Since I used a square to lay out the cardboard subwalls, the edges should be square. Lay a piece of 1/8 inch basswood strip along a wall that should have the bracing set back, and draw a line down the inside edge of the strip wood. When you glue the brace in place, set the brace on top of the line you drew. This allows for the fact that the line you drew is actually outside of the strip wood that you use to brace the back of this wall. When you glue the walls together, you can put the glue on the edges where the strip wood meets. Keep this in mind for the roof of the fueling area and how it will be glued to the outer front half wall and the extension on the side walls. If you use strip wood to give a gluing edge to the bottom of the structure, you will also need to think about what doors and windows you will be using. If you are using either Tichy doors and windows or Grantline doors and windows on your model, you can brace across the door openings at the bottom of your walls. Both of those companies sell two kinds of doors and windows, one set for masonry structures and the other for wood structures. The former does not have trim on the outside of the opening. The latter does. If you use castings from either source, you will not need to put trim around the doors and windows for those wood structure castings. Using those castings also means that you will need to cut openings for the doors and windows based on the measurements of those castings. I chose to scratch build my doors and windows from layers of index cards and cardstock. Normally, side walls without gables are glued between the gabled ends. Look at the picture in the upper left. This is the ice house build that Chris Blackmar was conducting on the weekend workshop of New Tracks modeling. This allows roofing to come down over the side walls without creating a gap between the side wall and the roof. You can see in that photo that the short side of the roof will easily fit over the side wall. The design of this service station structure, however, does not permit that. Look at the photo in the upper right. The upper part of the side walls is an extension of the side wall. The gabled ends will have to be fitted between the side walls. You can see that there is a slight gap created by the gabled end meeting the side wall. We will deal with this later when we glue the walls together. Gluing a brace to a brace is stronger than gluing the cardboard to the brace. But more importantly, gluing a brace to a brace will also help square up the building. That is why some bracing at the sides of the walls are at the edge and some are set back from the side walls. As you lay out your bracing, think about how the walls will be glued together. You probably noticed in the last photo that there are gaps in the side walls of my build. The front wall in the upper left corner of this photo will be glued into the areas indicated by the arrows in the photo. This is the main reason why I waited until now to add bracing to my walls. When I cut out the walls from the cereal box, I did not know exactly how the walls would go together. So rather than put bracing on the walls at that time, I waited until later to put bracing on the walls. If you look closely, you will see places on the back of the wall where the printing is missing. I had bracing glued there before I began to dry fit the walls together. It is important in construction to dry fit things before gluing things together. Initially, I did not do that. I presumed that I could put bracing where I thought it should go. You can see that there is considerable space where the front wall will be eventually glued between the side walls. After removing the bracing I glued in, I cut pieces of it to use as gluing spots for the front wall under the side windows. Look at where those red circles are. The bracing on the back of the front wall will be glued to those small vertical pieces and the ends of the bracing at the top of the side walls. Finally, before I prime these pieces, you can also see that the area behind the windows and doors are unobstructed by bracing. Often when I work with cardboard and paper, I brace the heck out of walls. Cardboard, cardstock, and paper have no grain to them as wood or embossed styrene do. You may ask why I did not brace around the doors and windows. It might seem that these areas may be subject to warping, and that is a good observation. There are several reasons why I did not brace in those two areas. Is it possible to overbrace or to have too much bracing? Or perhaps a better way to put it, when is enough enough? To answer that question, you need to ask yourself how much you may be handling the finished structure. If you're going to mount it permanently to your layout, then you don't need to brace the heck out of something. Another question to ask yourself is, how humid is your layout area? If you are dealing with high humidity that you cannot control, you may need to overbrace so that your walls will not warp. An alternative is to build with styrene, which is less likely to react to humidity. I'm going to use enamel spray paint to prime this model. The primer seals the cardboard, cardstock, and index card, which is the next step. This gives some stability to the porous material, even against humidity. It's not perfect, but better than material that is not sealed with a primer. Finally, I live in the high desert Southwest, where our humidity rarely gets above 30% and most often is in the range of 10 to 15%. Here is a photo of the walls that have been primed. I used a black enamel flat primer on the inside of all the walls because I do not intend to detail the inside of the structure. I used a gray primer on the outside of the walls. This will give an even coat as a base coat for all the colors that will be used on this model. I colored the outside of the walls using a sponge technique that has been described by many YouTube modeling creators. I sponged on vintage white more heavily at the top of the walls and less so at the bottom to make it look like some of the paint lower down on the walls was beginning to flake off. Later, I will use a wash of India ink and isopropyl alcohol to emphasize the fact that grooved siding is not recent. I will also dry brush some light gray paint to highlight the high spots. The trim color I used is raw sienna. It does not exactly match the color in Paul's drawings, but it does add something to the structure. Paul's drawing shows a darker color on the front doors of the building, so I used burnt umber. The picture shows all the windows and doors. I will describe how I make those in the following slides. Paul's drawings has very fine mullions in the windows. To create the windows for the front of the building and the two sides of the building, I used the free software program Inkscape. I used a technique that David Rayrig described in his build and is detailed by the author of the YouTube channel Chandwell. I imported a copy of Paul's front wall and a portion of one of the side walls into Inkscape. I started a second layer and began creating boxes on top of the black areas where the windows were on Paul's drawing. They are in red in the screen capture in the slide above. I also imported the garage door. Later on, I decided I did not need the garage door windows or the windows behind the front door because I could mount clear window material behind those areas later. What was most important was capturing the exact position of the mullions on the windows on the front and side walls. After capturing what you see in the slide above, I deleted the layer which contained Paul's front wall and side walls. I then printed the document on my printer using the cheapest full sheet labels I could find on the internet. The Chandwell YouTube channel recommends the cheapest because such labels use the cheapest glue, which makes removing the little red squares easier later on. I cut off the top of the sheet with the window arrangements and saved the rest to use for another project. I pulled off the backing material and applied it to a clear sheet of cellophane, like those used for overhead projectors, which I had left over from my years teaching high school about 40 years ago, but they were still good. Then I carefully cut the red pieces along their edges. I lifted a corner of each red rectangle and carefully peeled off the rectangle. This left a clear window with white mullions. I then used the front and side walls to trim down the pieces to fit between the openings. This slide shows the process I used to build the doors for the service station. The top index cards show the first layer or the bottom layer of the doors. On the right are the front doors, on the left are the two bathroom doors, and the center contains the garage door. Notice that the first layer must have areas cut out where the window panes will show through. The bottom index cards contain the top layer, which will later be glued to the bottom layer. This will create the paneled doors that Paul has illustrated in his drawings. Don't cut the doors out yet. It will be easier to layer the two index cards if they are whole. After layering them, you can cut out the doors. I coated the backside of the second layer with liquid PSA, but if you have rubber cement or 3M Super 77 spray cement around, that will work also. I am trying to build this structure with what you might have around your house. The problem with PVA glue, such as Elmer's all-purpose glue, is that it is very watery, and paper loves to absorb water. If you use a tackier glue such as Aleene's, you may have better success. But a type of glue that is not made of water will reduce the problem of distorting the fragile pattern of the doors. If you use a PVA type of glue, be very careful. I suggest that you coat the back of the second layer rather than the front of the first layer. Take your time and let the glue dry before trying to layer the two index cards if you are using rubber cement or liquid PSA. After layering the two cards, I used art gum eraser to remove most of the pencil markings. Be very careful as you erase around the mullions on the garage door. I will tell you that you probably will break one or two. Don't panic. Keep the mullions if you break them off entirely. You can later attach them to the clear sheet, which will make the windows behind the door. This is the end of part 2. As you can see in this slide, I have colored the walls, but I have not yet weathered them. You can also see the windows behind the front door. You can see the front door in the dark brown. You can see the bathroom doors and the two side windows. You can also see the result of the garage door. Next time, we will put signs on the walls, mount the windows indoors, and construct the box of the building.
Well, Father Ron, thank you so much for the video this evening. I'm sorry you couldn't be with us, but if you have any questions, please send Father Ron an email, and he'll be glad to respond to you. And hopefully then he'll be able to join us in 2 weeks when he comes back for his part 3 of his build of this model. I hope you enjoyed his presentation tonight. It's certainly an easy way to construct models, I think, and certainly it's very, very economical cost for you. Well, now I've got something about an upcoming build along with Jeff Adam, who owns Motrak Models, and Greg Cassidy, who's going to be building the model. And so let me introduce these two gentlemen to you and have them tell you a little bit about Jeff Adams' company and also about the model that they're going to build. And Jeff also has a surprise I think he wants to share with you at the end of this. So Jeff, Greg, please.
Good evening, folks. Yes, I'm Jeff, and I'm the owner of Motrak Models. I've been designing and laser cutting structure kits for almost 20 years. January will be my 20th anniversary. Basically, I also do detail parts out of hydrocal, like retaining walls. I make detailed laser cut detail parts. And I do a lot of custom work for people. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Alton Fire Station. Of course, this is the HO scale. Mr. Craig Cassidy is going to build the S scale. This kit is offered in all 4 scales, N, HO, S, and O. If you'd like to order the kit, just go to my website, motrakmodelsusa.com, order which scale you want, and you use a discount, New Tracks 22. I will put it in the show notes, and you'll get 15% off. Oh, there's something going on with the screen. Everything okay, Phil?
That's all good.
Oh, okay. So again, I will put in the show notes, but if you order the kit, within the next 2, 3, say next month, you'll get 15% off if you use the code NewTracks22 when you place the order. All right, Craig, you want to start?
Okay. Let me start my share screen. Get my slide up. So as Jeff said, we're going to be building the Alton Fire Station, and the one I'll be building is in S scale. This is a quick introduction to let anyone know what kind of tools and supplies they might need. And I also want to talk about some skills that a modeler may gain if they build this. I'll be showing some dry brushing. I'll be working with laser cut windows and doors, which come in the S and O scale and some of the N scale. The HO scale comes with cast windows. I'll be using a couple different products for the brick mortar, just to show you a variety of what you have available. We'll be applying diamond cut shingles, which are a little out of the ordinary. We'll be painting and applying some gingerbread onto it. And I'll discuss about when and where you may want to deviate from instructions on any kit that you may have. First of all, it helps to have a nice workbench or an open area where you can work, especially depending on the scale of your kit. These are some of the tools that I'll be using. Not all of them are required for the kit, but most of them would be very useful. I have a series of clamps, a number of X-Acto blades, and sometimes I use a scalpel, a variety of tweezers. Up here I have some 1, 2, 3 blocks. A set of nippers can help. Over here we have sandpaper and sanding sticks, a square or 2, and sometimes a pencil. I use old coffee lids for my glue palettes and my paint palettes. That's just what I like, but there's a variety of things you can use. And I think this is the most important tool anybody has on their workbench, which is a toothpick. I use mine all the time. These are the glues and some of the other products I'll be using. For gluing wood, I'll tend to use a tacky glue or a canopy glue or a liquid PSA if I'm attaching something that I don't want any oozing. Sometimes plastic glues for putting acetate into windows. Super glues, and with super glues, I always use an accelerator. A variety of stains. I have a few washes here. And then a couple products that I'll be showing how I can do mortar on bricks. And I always have some extra strip wood on hand. Most kits come with the strip wood needed, but I still haven't built a kit where I haven't had to use a little bit of what I had on hand. Sometimes because I was modifying a kit. These are the paints that I'll be using on the kit, and they're almost identical to what are suggested in the instructions. An apple barrel white and an apple barrel gray. Mine's country gray instead of dove gray. And the recommended red is a poly-S caboose red, which mine's all dried up, but I have some Model Flex Signal red that's very close, and any kind of red. And frankly, any colors you want to use are fine. I'm just using these because I'm building the kit very similar to the way it looks on the model, on the box. You can find other paints that are similar colors and use them if you like. I have a couple specialty tools that I use on every kit that I build. I'm not saying you need these, but I've used them every time and I've never once regretted getting them. And I usually work to music, so I think it's a good thing to have going on in the background. That's just me personally. And sometimes maybe we can discuss different music that modelers listen to. And this is basically what comes in the kit. You get your instructions, your diamond cut shingles. In the S scale, it's laser cut windows. The kit is comprised of inner and outer walls, which do a lot of bracing. And one of the things I like that Jeff did is for the structure walls, he has the grain going in one direction on the outer wall and the other direction on the inner wall, which makes them as strong as plywood. And then some strip wood in the kit. And that's all I have to say about what we're going to be building. So I'll turn it back to Jeff, and he's got some other stuff he wants to talk about.
All right, Craig, you were mentioning brick. There's no brick in that building.
There's the chimney.
Oh, crap.
Now,
I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Well, and I am going to be having trouble showing two different types of mortar on a little chimney like that, but I figure I'll do one on one side and one on the other.
Yeah, I totally forgot about the chimney because I'm sitting there looking at it. There's no brick on here. Yeah, but I forgot. So your chimney, the HO scale gets a white metal casting from Best
Okay.
Friend. Yours
Yeah, this one is laser cut.
Yeah, yours is laser cut. And O scale is laser cut, and the N scale is a plastic chimney from Tichy.
Well, my mortar will work on all of them.
Yeah, I forgot about the chimney. All right, first things first. If anybody would like to receive my newsletter, please go to my website, click on contacts, and fill in your name and your email address. I will get a notification, and then I'll add your email address to my newsletter list. Every time when I do a newsletter, if it's a new structure, I will always give a deal for the people who reads my newsletter. That's the catchphrase. You have to read it. So basically, you just go on to Motrak Models under contact. I'll put a direct link up there on the show notes. So all right, there's the direct link. Just go there, fill out the information. I will get notification. I will be doing a newsletter in another hour or so. I don't know if you guys ever heard the name Craig Biscayr. He's a well-known modeler on the East Coast. We have done clinics together. We've done shows from Springfield, Mass, all the way down to Cocoa Beach, Florida. And I have known him for 18 plus years. He unfortunately passed away 3 weeks ago. So I am making a kit where 20% of the proceeds is going to go to the family. How about to pay for the expense and everything? The kit is called the Biscayr Tool Company. I released this kit back in 2012. Oh, Phil, you're putting pictures up, right? There we go. So, share screen. So the original kit came out in 2012. It came with hydrocal foundation, hydrocal brick walls, LED lighting, and came with a water tank. This kit, it's not going to include those 4 items. I'm trying to lower the cost because I want to sell many as I can so we can give the family a nice big check. While you're looking at the pictures, can you flip to the others, Bill? There we go. So basically, instead of the stone foundation, you're getting a laser cut cinder block foundation. And okay, the brick there, that's laser cut brick. So this thing is 100% laser cuts. The HO skill will come with plastic windows and doors. The other 3 skills, N, S, and O, will be all 100% laser cuts. So basically you get this building, and I'm going to throw in a little extra. I'm going to throw in another building. You have that one, Phil?
I don't know. These are all I have.
I didn't send you the blue building?
I don't think so. It's all right. You can show it there. I'll just stop sharing and you can show it.
Okay.
I think you had it there.
Yeah, no, I do. All right. If you order the kit between now and next Wednesday, basically, I'm going to throw in another building. And it's called Craig's Tool Shop. So basically, the story is Craig created this factory, and then he wanted to sell some tools to the local residents. So he created this storefront. So I am throwing this in for free. So just let's help this family out. I'm asking you guys, everybody, help. Order the kit. The shipping will start end of September, beginning of October, depending on the number of orders I get. Of course, if I don't get any, or very few, then it will go out sooner.
What scale does it come in, Jeff?
I'm offering in all 4 scales: N, HO, S, and O.
What price do you have on it?
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Okay. Retail price. All right, I'll give you the price and the measurements. N scale, retail is 140. The measurements are 6 3/4 by 4 1/4. HO, retail 180. Measurements 12 1/2 by 7 1/4. S, 280. Measurements 16.8 by 10.3. O scale 340. Measurements 22 1/2 by 13 3/4. But if you order the kit between now and next Wednesday, I am taking $20 off the retail price. Plus, you're getting this building in whatever scale you're ordering in. And then 20% will go to the family. 20% of the proceeds is going to go to the family. It's up on my website, all 4 scales. So let's help this family out. That is it, sir. I already added your name, Jim, so you're good to go.
Jeff, if you, like I said, if you will send me whatever information you're going to put on your website about this building, then I'd be honored to put it on our website too. It's modelers like your friend, when they pass away, the hobby really loses a tremendous amount of modeling ability and skill, and that's awfully hard to replace. And the dedication that modelers like that bring to our hobby and bring to the younger modelers that are coming in today, I just don't think it can be overstated. So anything that we can do to help you in this, be most happy to try to help.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this for the family.
Yeah, well, the website is up already.
Okay.
And you're going to be getting the newsletter about another say another hour, hour and a half. You're getting a copy of the newsletter.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for you and Greg. I appreciate both of you being back and doing this again. This is not your first time doing a build along on our show, and I really do appreciate you coming back.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks
Looking
so much.
forward to it, Jim.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
All right, now we've got a little something special. I know this has been a long show, and I apologize for that. But at the same time, the segment that we have coming up is important to me. It's called S-Scale Today. I'm doing one of these on each one of the scales. I've done one in the past on N-Scale that turned out to be, I think, very successful and popular. And I think this one will be too. When I was selecting a scale, I selected O-Scale because I was around a lot of people that were in O-Scale. And that's what they talked about. And I was a Lionel collector, and it was just a natural for me to migrate to O-Scale. I never met an S-Scaler. I met a couple of people who were an American Flyer when I was a kid. But after that, I really just, I don't know, I just never ran across S-Scale modelers. So it never occurred to me to look into S-Scale as a modeling scale for myself. And so that's why this is kind of important to me. Second reason is, for the last 5 years, I've been writing the New Track series for Amy and Dan's publication, S-Scale Resource Magazine. And my articles are the same for S-Scale modelers as they are for O-Scale modelers. Both of them need mentors. The skills are basically the same that you need. The techniques are basically the same that you use. The models are a little bit smaller in S-Scale than they are O-Scale. Prices are different. But other than that, the mentoring that's needed, the development of skills and techniques that are required basically are the same. So therefore, it's kind of easy for me to take modelers in any scale and write about them in my articles, and I do. Because the skills and techniques for modelers are transferable, in my opinion. And I think that's been proven. It was proven in my case because my mentor was an HO scale modeler. So what I've done tonight is I put together a panel, 4 people, and let me introduce them to you. Jamie Bothwell, Mike Warman, Tony Dixon, and Michael Ostertag. And what I'd like to start with here is ask each one of them to tell us a little bit about themselves and their involvement with the S-Scale hobby. And Jamie, I'd like to start with you, sir.
Okay, well, I got into S-Scale. I was an HO modeler for a few years, several years in my youth. I kind of knew S-Scale existed because I would bump into reviews in Model Railroader and various articles in Model Railroader. Model Railroader used to do a series, S-Scale at 40, S-Scale at 50 or whatever. So I kind of knew of its existence. I ran into a couple of S-Scale specific publications at my local hobby shop. And actually, one of the big manufacturers was actually located in my hometown. Although I didn't really get involved with them, while I lived there. So eventually I went to see a fellow's S-Scale layout. It was on a tour and I thought, wow, man, this is just really cool. I really like the size of these trains. And, I sold all my HO stuff and went into S-Scale. And that was back in about 1987. So I don't know, you do the math. I ran out of fingers and toes. So. Somebody else want to jump in there or?
Yeah, Mike, how about you? You're muted.
Fix that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I started S-Scale about 15 years ago. I ran into an individual who had a huge layout in his basement, and he lived like 8 houses up the street from me. Didn't know he did this stuff. So he was down there, and he really pushed S scale on everybody that walked in the door. He was the head of the NOS group. That's Northern Ohio S scalers. Very popular guy. And he was with the Cleveland group for a while, and then formed just for S scale, no flyer allowed. And his crowd built this 3-level layout that was just awesome. And it wasn't just track. They also had buildings and industry zone and all kinds of really interesting things that you don't see normally. I haven't seen normally. Usually you just get those plywood prairies. But he got me interested and that was a Thursday night. And I tell my friends I was over at his house every Thursday night after that. Because he was just that interesting. And the guys that with him, the guys who knew the history of the B&O and AC&Y and all these other things, it was a learning session.
Well, Tony, how about yourself? Tony Dixon, how about you?
Well, I want to clarify, I'm a 64 scale modeler, not specifically S scale. Prior to S scale, I was an HO scale modeler for the better part of 20 years and took about a 5 to 7 year hiatus from modeling altogether before starting in on 164 scale stuff. And over the past few years, I've started acquiring more S scale and been involved with some very good groups of guys that are high end S scale stuff, and hopefully just try to expand the hobby and the knowledge across different aspects of modeling in 164 scale.
Well, that sounds like an interesting path you've traveled. Well, Michael was supposed to be with us this evening, but I don't see him here. I know that he had a conflict at some point tonight, so maybe he had to leave the show early. I'm sorry that he couldn't join us. So let me just continue this with the three of you all. And I guess my first question is, what's the major advantage for a modeler to select S scale, and what's the major drawback for the modeler suggesting going with S scale for his choice of scales? Jamie?
Well, I would say, for my opinion, the real thing that any scale offers is size. What is it that you want to do with model railroading, and what size is the best fit for that? And S scale we like to think of as the perfect size, and so it's got a little bit of that space savings of HO, but a little bit of that heft of O scale. So we like to think of it as that perfect sort of middle ground. Probably the biggest disadvantage is that, we being the smallest of the major scales, we have the least amount of stuff available, and it's also the sort of hardest to find. You're not really going to walk into very many hobby shops and bump into a lot of S scale. You really kind of have to look for it. So.
Anybody else?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mike, Tony, how about you guys?
Well, it seemed like you end up ordering online more than anything else because, like you said, hobby shops don't carry a scale. Even if they carry flyer, they don't carry a scale. And we're having more and more companies kind of like drop out. We've had some recent deaths even, but American Models, for instance, Tony Bashista has passed, but they are keeping on the best they can for American Models. As helper, Don Thompson kind of stopped and kind of sold it off, and MTH didn't pick up on it too well. And so it's harder to find, the things that we're used to having. And I hear this month that Dan Navarre, who does fabulous brass S-scale stuff with his Korean contact, he is going to be closing his doors at the end of the year. So, but he has tons of brass accessories to go with the models he still has in the shop. So,
Tony, how about you?
Well, major disadvantage, at least as far as my aspect and the group of guys that I deal with, is the lack of modern equipment in S scale. If you want it, you got to build it. If you're lucky, you can find the few pieces that are out there. S scale kind of got stagnant shortly after the transition period between steam and diesel and into the early 60s. And there was a large section in there where there's the equipment and the stuff that you'd see modern days just isn't available. A lot of locomotives and stuff in there you don't have because no major manufacturer picked it up. Dealing with 1/64 scale modeling in general, the fact that the groups seem to butt heads, the diehard modeler groups look at S-scale trains as playing with toy trains, and a lot of the S-scale modelers look at the die-cast modeling groups as groups of individuals and sectors as just collecting toy cars, when all in all it's the same overall hobby. We use the same techniques and stuff, and if major manufacturers would pay attention to actually bridging the gaps with everything in the scale, I believe that a lot of those manufacturers would actually start listening to the hobby, because overall the scale itself, the 1/64 scale modeling, has HO scale beaten to dust for the amount of people that are actually modeling and collecting in 1/64 scale versus just the railroad aspect. And that's where the manufacturers seem to focus, is just on the railroad aspect of 1/64 scale modeling. One thing that I did see that was recently announced was that Scale Trains is starting to re-release some of the S-Helper service equipment and stuff, and slowly going to be re-releasing that. And I've heard rumors, now these are just rumors, but they're also going to be starting to slowly design and manufacture some of the bridge gap equipment and locomotives that we've been missing in the scale. And I hope that's true. I really do.
Well, we do have a little bit of that problem in that, like the cart before the horse, or however you want to term that. It's like if you build it, they'll come. Like, we don't have modern models, so nobody buys the modern models, so nobody builds the modern models, so nobody we need somebody to stick their neck out and make them. But most of our manufacturers are not necessarily willing to do that, and I understand that. I mean, it's not, I'm not telling them how to spend their money. They know where their market is, but Tony did touch on the one place S-scale really has a vast advantages. We have an amazing assortment of vehicles. We have a really good, there's a lot of 1/64 scale vehicles. Johnny Lightning, and some of those are a little questionable, but M2, I think it is I forget the names. I see a
M2 Machines, Green Light, Auto World is all true 1/64 scale.
Yeah, if I see a car that I like, then I buy it. So, I don't really care what manufacturer it is. So, but anyway, as some of you know, I'm into passenger trains, so I'm firmly implanted into the transition era. And occasionally at the recent S-scale convention, I had to fight the urge to backdate that 50 or 60 years. But anyway, they, if I find any cars from, say, the early 1950s, I just buy a couple examples of them. So,
yeah.
But anyway.
Well, I have heard I have heard the comments that Tony is making from a lot of different modelers who really feel if there was a way, an organization, some kind of a structure where all of the various different hobbies that are involved in 1/64 scale, whether it's model railroading, die cast, machinery, whatever the hobby is. If there was a way for that group to get together and commit to what they really wanted to see on the market, then I do think that they would have a tremendous market advantage for manufacturers. I just don't see a way for that to happen. How about you guys?
Well, in S-Scale, we do have the NASG, which is the National Association of S-Gaugers. And we have a website, nasg.org. It's a very thorough website. The webmaster is a wonderful guy. He works tirelessly for very little compensation. And, you know, there's literally every time he finds any, you know, there's a listing of manufacturers, that anybody he can find that will make anything in 1/64th, they get a plug on our website. And then, you know, of course, there's sort of a history of all the products, you know, obviously more railroad related, but well, at least that's where I spend my time when I'm there. So maybe there's cars and vehicles and whatnot. I don't know. But, you know, buildings, whatever, there's sort of a history of all these past manufacturers. So you can see what's been made, you know, over the course of the years. So if you're at all interested in NASG, or sorry, if you're all interested in S-Scale or 1/64th modeling, I highly recommend that you check out the nasg.org. That's the best place you could start right there. So, and as far as you know, the NASG is sort of an umbrella organization for S-Scale trains. Now, again, I know Tony, you're involved with what is it, like a one-day thing this fall up in Minnesota?
I'm involved with a group of guys from Minnesota that are putting that on.
Right. So there's a group from Minnesota. There's an S-Scale club in Minnesota that they're putting on a one-day thing this fall, which is all just 1/64th modeling. It's not specifically railroads or specifically farm toys, because there's a huge, you know, as we heard, was it a couple weeks ago, there's a huge group of, you know, farm modelers in 1/64th also. So,
you know, just a thought process for you guys. It seems to me that modeling scales tend to match to the prototype that is most common and sought in the scale. So if you think about it, I mean, the problem with S-Scale when you get to the modern era is that things start getting bigger. And the current era tends to be less detailed. So it's a lot easier to migrate to HO. If you want to model modern, the diesels, it's easy to put decoders in them. So that tends to be more modern modeling, where S tends to be more in the transition, where A, things were smaller, B, they were more detailed, especially when you go into steam. What you have now is the larger scale helps you in terms of being able to install electronics, etc. And then if you look at O scale, and a lot of the recent growth in O scales has been in the ON30 space. And that again represents the area where you've got a smaller prototype, which therefore is easier to model in a larger scale. And conversely, if you go to the far end, if you look at N, a lot of N modeling is in fact, you know, the most modern modeling, where again, there's the least detail and the largest size to be modeled. So therefore you align with a smaller scale. But it's kind of an interesting thought process of manufacturer of whether or not somebody who wanted to model the modern era would choose S over HO. When you look at kind of the priorities of modeling with the scale you need, the siding length, etc. So this is an interesting thought as to why you might not see a lot of modern stuff in S scale, because there may not really be a lot of adoption. It may be more driven by that ratio of scale to the prototype. Anyway, enough said.
I also believe too that, you know, a number of S-scalers are of the age that sort of the transition era was, you know, when they, you know, they had American Flyer trains as a kid, or they had steam locomotives, and, you know, like that's what they want to model. And realistically, even in HO today, a lot of people want to model the transition era because they kind of get that best of both worlds, steam, diesel, you can kind of have everything. And, you know, so S-scale is sort of, I don't know if you want to say pick the sweet spot, but, you know, it's kind of like, we got a lot of people in this bracket, so we're going with this. And, you know, I don't know.
I think the point I was making is that if you're modeling the transition era, S scale is a good compromise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Between the detail of O and the, call it for lack of a volume scale of HO. But when you get into the modern era, that compromise begins to really go away as the equipment gets larger, and therefore in S it gets even larger, and all of a sudden you say go to HO. And I think the level of detail, I mean, if you compare a steam engine to a modern diesel in terms of the detail level you can actually see and manage, it's a lot easier to shrink it into HO with a diesel than it was with a steam. Anyway, just the thought process. It's kind of interesting because we're seeing, for example, a lot of the modelers, the modeling lifestyle are now in O, who are doing these amazing models like Lou Sassy in ON30. So it's interesting.
One of the things too that I keep hearing about is that S scale is the model builder scale. Now I'm assuming part of that is lack of kits, but is S scale really the model builder scale? You believe that?
Out of necessity.
What I would tell you is that in S scale, you know, you really pretty much have to be, it's not like you have to build everything. You know, they used to say you had to, you know, in S you had to build everything. I mean, you can build a very nice model railroad without really building anything. You know, again, based on the product that's on the market. But if, you know, like we don't really have any built up buildings. So, I mean, if you're going to have structures on your model railroad, you're probably going to have to build them. So, yeah, you're pretty much going to have to build something. You know, you can't just go out and buy, like I know in HO nowadays, they have all these built up structures you can go buy. And, you know, but in S scale, you're going to have to build something. I mean, there's no two ways about it. So.
You think there's more scratch building in S scale than the other scales?
I don't know. I mean, again, if you wanted to talk on a percentage basis, because, you know, obviously HO, there's a lot of scratch builders in HO, and because they have, you know, they dwarf us in numbers, I'm sure they dwarf us in sheer numbers of scratch builders. But, you know, again, as a percentage wise, I don't know. Again, you know, one of the other things S scale does pretty well with is kits. I mean, building kits, you know, structure kits. We have a lot of structure kits. You know, I mean, you saw the fellow from Motrak tonight. You know, he says, "Oh yeah, I'm going to make it in all 4 scales." You know, I mean, you know, he'll probably sell 10 times as many HO ones as he does S. But you know, we can buy it in S. So there is, you know, and I mean, I personally, like, anytime somebody makes a product that I wanted, I would be like, okay, great. Then I don't have to scratch build that one, but there's still, you know, 100 other things I could, you know, if I really want to get my scratch building, you know, Jones, I can, there's something else I can build. There's always something else you can build. So.
Well, here's the argument that I have toward that as a 1/64th scale modeler in general, and bridging the gap with all the other aspects of the hobby. If you're in and around the turn of the century, there are a ton of kits. If you get post World War II, there's nothing. You can update some buildings with a few detail parts, but you're still basically scratch building anything post World War II. There is a large group of individuals outside of the model railroad world that have been trying to integrate S scale into their displays and their modules, and have given up on it because the modern stuff is not available. And I mean, I could go to the National Farm Toy Show, which has over 1,000 visitors each day for the 3 days that they are open in November, and I could introduce you to a couple hundred farm modelers in 1/64 scale who want railroad, want to integrate railroad, don't, because the modern stuff isn't available. And that's something that's been brought up at that show in small groups. That's something that's part of the group that I'm with from Minnesota. That's why we're trying to get this gap bridged. Is there are a ton of modelers outside of the specific model railroad niche in 1/64 scale that want to integrate model railroading, but again, everything that, or the bulk of what is available is the transition era, and they're modeling modern. Award winners for 1/64 scale modeling at these shows, at the National Farm Toy Show, the St. Louis Farm Toy Show, the Lafayette Farm Toy Show, a large group of them have voiced that they want to integrate railroad, but they're modeling modern day, not 1950s, early 1960s, and the stuff just isn't available. So they're not integrating the model railroading into their displays.
But Tony, if the association that I think it was Jamie was talking about, the National S-Gauge Association, if wouldn't, could they be the voice for the farm modelers and for these other groups that want to join in with the S-scale model railroaders, or have you all tried to?
The NASG has shown at the National Farm Toy Show. I believe they've shown at the Summer Farm Toy Show. They were represented by the wrong group of individuals with the display that they brought to show. They tried to pander to the farm toy guys by bringing their modules and setting up their track with their farm related modules, and they had children, and I mean 5-6 years old, calling them out on mistakes on their modules because the modules were designed or built by people who knew nothing about knew nothing about farming. And I mean, when the 5- and 6-year-olds are calling them out because they blatantly had something wrong on it, and they're being misrepresented. I mean, the group is there trying to represent, but they're being the group of individuals that went to do the representing were not the group of individuals to be representing the S-scale modeling at the show.
Well, it's certainly not my place to say, but if I was heavily involved with that association, it would seem to me that I'd want to talk to this group, because that to me would be a potential membership category that I may not have had before.
Well, in our defense, somebody told me at the convention that they tried to pitch something to what's the magazine, Farm Toy Modeler or something like that.
Yeah, that's the only real hard copy magazine.
Okay,
and
well,
they
somebody
are not a 1/64 scale oriented farm toy magazine.
Okay, well, somebody tried to pitch an article to them about what you could do with railroads for your for your 1/64 scale models, and the editor said we're not interested.
They're not interested in anything 1/64 scale.
So
Toy Farmer is a 1/16 scale farm toy collectors magazine.
Okay.
They want nothing. They overall, in whole, they ignore the 1/64 scale part of the farm toy magazine.
Okay.
I know they're the only hard copy magazine, hard paper magazine that does anything with farm toy modeling. They are not representative of the overall small scale 1/64 scale farming world. They are set in their ways, and they are 99.95% 1/16 scale farm toy collecting.
Okay.
They are the worst person to talk to. I mean, yes, they're the ones that actually sponsor and put on the show in November. They sponsor the trophies for the different modeling categories, but they are not a 1/64 scale modeling magazine.
Okay, well,
the individuals that you need to talk to are Toy Tractor Times, which is an all online forum. They are the one that would get the largest group of 1/64 scale modelers' attention, and they are what will get you the best feedback also.
All right, well, maybe your organization and my organization need to talk. So
yeah, that's what it sounds like to me too. Another thing that I've run into, both for the show and for articles, I keep hearing that the S scaler is basically the silent scale. It's hard to find them, and I compared to the other scales, I don't know why that is. Do you?
Well, S scale, it's like, again, like I kind of said about building the modern models, it's like we've been ignored by the mainstream press, if you will, for so long that we've just sort of found our own ways around things. For the longest time, okay, I'll give you an example. Model Railroader one time, I don't remember, but like back in the day when they would run a drawing, they would say, you could build this model by doing this or this or this. You know, in HO, you could do this, and in O scale, you could do this, right?
Yeah.
So they had a model, they had a drawing of a GP18. And they said, you know, in HO scale, you could kit bash this, and in O scale, you could do that. And then they didn't mention S scale at all. When in S scale, you could go out and buy the locomotive as a, you know, relatively simple kit. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was advertised by a manufacturer, an S scale manufacturer. There was an ad a couple pages away from the drawing. So they could have promoted their own advertisers by saying, you know, why don't you go buy this kit if you want to build an S scale? And the drawing in the magazine was in S scale. So, you know, there's a joke that S scale just, you know, they don't really exist. It's only there for drawings. You know, they just, you know, you see all these drawings in S scale and, you know, but nobody, you know, they fit on a page well, but like, you know, like the press sort of ignores us. So we've learned workarounds. And so, you know, we hide in our little cave and nobody sees us, and, you know, we have a good time and we're happy, but, you know, yeah, we are kind of hidden away. You know, that's been a problem. I mean, you know, we talk about, you know, we do our best, and that's what our website, we're trying to promote, you know, so
yeah.
Anyway, Mike, you got anything to add on that?
It's just very difficult to go to a show and find S scale at a show. You will find flyer all over the place, but you go to the show, it's hard to find anything S there. And it's getting kind of disappointing. Again, about the only thing you can do is order your stuff online, and it's
Could I show a really quick video?
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
not going to make
please.
Tony happy, but
Please do, Jay.
all right. If I do this, and where did it go now? That's this one right here. Okay, so I got to do share. Yeah, share. Okay, all right. And if I do that, all right, you guys seeing that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'll just pause right there. That locomotive is almost completely 3D printed. I believe the frame was 3D printed and then like in a wax and then done with a lost wax casting. And then the driver centers are 3D printed, and then they have metal tires pressed onto them. So, you know, again, this is the kind of thing that we're doing in S scale right now to, you know, promote the, you know, like it's, you can build one of these and it's okay. You can build 20 of them and it's okay. You know, it's sort of the overcoming this idea that you want to build, you know, like if you're going to have a plastic, you're going to make a plastic cast locomotive, you know, you're going to want to sell 10,000 of those to get your money back. And, you know, these you can just one off them and it doesn't matter. So that's kind of cool. So that's built by a fellow who lives in Montreal.
I'm sorry. Who built that?
Simone Perrant. He's from Montreal.
Awesome.
So yeah, this was a, you know, footage from the recent S scale convention. So there you go. And then it happens to be pulling a couple of my cars. That's something that's a mostly laser cut car right there. So again, I can make one of those. I can make 100 of them. I don't really plan to make 100 of them because I'm not really a manufacturer. But and then that little box car is a BTS kit, Bill's Train Shop kit. It's a Pennsylvania Railroad XA. So again, that's mostly a laser cut kit. So again, the laser, you know, these new technologies are going to help us, and I'll just stop there. But you know, I feel like a lot of these, you know, the 3D printing and the laser cutting are good for us because you don't have to go through the whole expense and trouble of tooling up, you know, to make hundreds and hundreds of models. I guess you're holding up a laser cut, what is that, SW1500 or something? Or sorry, not laser cut, but 3D printed.
3D printed 1500, yes.
Yeah.
Ken Zieska had some of these kits at the.
Yeah, I see. He had one. I saw he had one at Minnesota. I was looking what he was doing with it. So
yeah, that is 95%, 99% 3D printed.
Yeah. Does it run on? Is it run on an S helper chassis? Is that?
No, it uses Stanton drives.
Oh, Stanton's. Okay.
It's got a full 3D printed chassis.
Oh, okay.
This one's a dummy. Like the only things not 3D printed on here are the handrails, the stanchions, and the axle shafts themselves, and the grabs and the other detail parts, most of which are from BTS.
Right. And see, I look at that as being a, that's the way you're going to get your more modern diesels. Somebody who's got the skills can draw that up, and then, you can 3D print them and maybe make a urethane shell for it. And then, we don't have to go through like thousands of dollars of tooling. So,
that's the whole reason those come around, is because somebody needed a set of newer switch locomotives for National Farm Bush.
That's what happens with a lot of S-scale stuff. It's like necessity. I need this, so you make it, and then you make it available, and other people can have one too. So, there's a couple of guys on Shapeways that are doing that. They've got some S-scale locomotives. They just wanted them for themselves, and they figured, well, if I'm making it, it's I make one, then I can make as many as anybody wants. So
let me ask you a question, because somebody just brought it up about American Flyer models. Well, American Flyer modelers are S-scale modelers in a lot of ways, depending on how they do their layouts. If they use the same kits for the structures, the same kind of scenery material, the same things that a scale modeler would use, except for the track and wheels, what's the difference whether they're American Flyer or S-scale modelers? Aren't they in the same market?
They have the big knuckle couplers that look ugly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there are occasionally considerable compromises to be able to accommodate flyer sized flanges and the knuckle couplers. So, a lot of scale modelers look at that and they don't, I don't want to deal with that because it's this or that. And, if you're a real scale modeler, you're going to make compromises, the pilot's going to be open or something like that. So there is that possibility. But yeah, there are a lot of, and then, S-scale, O-scale, I'm sure is somewhat the same, but, you've got guys that they want to buy an American Flyer train, take it out of the box, put it on their layout and watch it go around in circles. Okay. Then you've got this group that we call high railers, and they are, they use American Flyer type track, and maybe they use couplers, but maybe they've gone to Katy couplers, but they still have the deeper flanges and the larger wheels. And they build beautiful, some of them build beautiful scale models. There's a guy, Brooks Stover, if you've heard of him, he's been in Model Railroad a few times. He's got a gorgeous layout, but it's high rail, it's got the taller flanges and all that, although he uses the Katy couplers. So, some of those guys really build. So yeah, there's a definite crossover there, sure. But some of them, there are the flyer guys who don't want to do anything but flyer. And that's their hobby. They can do whatever they want, but I'm not trying to badmouth them. I'm just saying it's just not what a lot of the scale guys want to do. So I don't know. I'm looking at the chat here, Tony. Did you see that question about nominate 4 items that you would?
I saw that. I can think of 2 right off the top of my head that would be good, that are big generational, that they start bridging the gap between what the modern stuff that's available through Fly and L and the stuff like American Models and stuff has available. And that would be coming out with the Dash 2 chassis and the different shells that would fit on a Dash 2 chassis for a Jeep. Because if a manufacturer came out with a Dash 2 chassis, they could have a 38-2, they could have a 40-2, they could have a large, they could start doing a large selection of locomotives that are still being used by short lines, by even Class 1 railroads, and so on, that can still be considered modern, but be bridging that gap. Another one is some good post 1970, post 75 grain cars that would still be on the tracks. I know there's a couple guys working on them and working on designing kits and whatever to get some of those out there. but I know those are two items that a lot of the guys that are wanting to get into the model railroading, a lot of younger guys, and I mean preteens, teens, 20s, that are outside of the model railroading community currently. That's the kind of stuff that they're looking to get.
And do you think a
for
Jeep
starting out.
38? Do you think a Jeep 38 is new enough?
A dash 2.
Okay.
As long as it's the dash 2, because that gives you the chassis that you can have a 38-2, a 40-2. You know, 40-2s are still being used by Class 1 railroads currently.
Oh yeah, so are 38s, you know.
And 38s. Down here at Marshalltown, Iowa, at the Union Pacific yards, I bet you there's 10 or 15 of them around the yard there on any given week.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can still, I live about a mile from a Norfolk Southern yard, and I think there's a couple of 38s that sort of live in there, so.
Yep, and that, you know, so, and it would be if the manufacturer did that dash 2 chassis, there's a large assortment of bodies that would go, you know, of the dash 2 bodies that fit that chassis, that they wouldn't have to modify the chassis to get the production out there. And it would, you know, that will start A, bridging the gap where the stuff is, and B, it'll help bring in some of these individuals and groups from outside who are wanting to do, you know, wanting to add railroad to their displays, that don't want, you know, Jeep 9s and stuff like that that you just don't see anymore.
Now, do you feel like I mean, these farm displays that I've seen pictures of are pretty much like dioramas. I mean, would people build, would they just include a siding in their diorama, or would they want a full on, like, you can drive the train around kind of thing? How do you feel about that?
Yes. Both aspects. It depends on the individual. A lot of them want to add a siding or add a chunk of main line going through their farm, and they want the stuff on there that they see. And the farm toy guys are not scared to spend money. And I kid you not about that. And I will, if you give me a half second, I will show you a prime example. Okay. I do stuff for 1/64 scale guys. This tractor right here. A lot of the model railroaders go, okay, it's just a seam filler. This is a $300 1/64 scale tractor. I get $300 to $350 out of this tractor when it's all set, when I sell it. And I mean, this is, you know, the front end steers, pivots. It's got the functioning 3-point. It is a scale model to 1/64 scale of a tractor. And the farm toy guys pay this. They have no problem paying the money for the stuff if it's available. You know, you tell them, okay, there's a 38-2 available. It's $250. You know, like the American Models Jeep 9. I'm going to use that for an example. You have a company like American Models. They have a 38-2 comes out next week, and the farm toy guys catch wind of it. And a modern, like a, well, what model number? Like a 4570 grain hopper comes out, and the farm toy guys catch wind of it. It's like, oh, hey, modern stuff, modern paint job. You know, boom, it sells because they catch wind of it and they find out. And I cannot confirm this. This is from a second hand, but one of the best selling shows for Des Plaines Hobbies is when they set up at the Lafayette Toy Show. And that's a farm toy show, not a model railroad show. And that's because it's getting it out there. Oh, hey, there are scale, you know, 1/64 scale stuff that's being presented, being available for sale. And a lot of the guys, you know, that they're buying that stuff that they can get there, and they're choosing the stuff that is close to what they see currently around.
But listen, let me ask you one last question here before we close this up, because it's getting late. Where is the hobby going for S-scale? Where do you see it in 3-5 years from now?
Well, I don't know if we can get some synergy with these farm guys going up, up, up. I mean, it's sounds like that would be a way to go. So, I mean, we're going to have to talk. So,
Yeah, if we can get I feel if we can get the market gap, especially because the farm toy modeling group and the die-cast modeling group in general is younger than most of the S-scale model railroading group that I've been involved with and that I've talked with. If we can get the farm toy group exposed to the S-scale and get some of the manufacturers interested, involved with, and listening to what the groups, the other 64 scale modeling groups are looking at from a manufacturer's lookout and from the hobby in general, I feel it could very well grow. But if there isn't an effort put forth somewhere from some group to initiate it, I think it's going to be about the same as it's been and fairly stagnant.
Mike, what do you think?
I think that at the rate we are losing our hobby modelers here, it's going to be difficult without getting younger people involved. Somehow we have to get younger people under 40, involved in this.
Well, let me give you my opinion, and it's not worth much. I write for the magazine, but I write from a modeling standpoint, not from, actually an S-scale operator. It seems to me that either the NMRA or the National S-Scale Association is really needs to take a hard look at these other non-model railroading groups that Tony keeps talking about, and I've heard about from an awful lot of farm modelers, particularly the die-cast people. I've heard it from a few. I don't talk to many of those, although now I'm starting to run into them more and more as I meet different people in that hobby. But from the farm modeler's perspective, what Tony is saying is exactly what I've been told. Number one, it's a younger group of people. Number two, yes, they are interested in model railroading for their dioramas. Three, yes, they are spending money. They have the money to spend and they don't mind spending it. The $350 tractor that Tony showed you, I've heard stories like that from the buyers of those kind of items. I have heard that the farm modeler part of the S-scale market is what they feel that they bring to the table for S-scalers is 3D printing capability, that they believe is far further along than it is in model railroading for S-scale. What they believe the S-scale model railroader brings to the table is scenery construction. And they feel that they have an awful lot to learn from model railroaders in scenery. They have an awful lot to give to model railroaders 3D printing. That's basically what I hear. And it seems to me that if one of those associations stepped up and said, okay, let's see if we can put this together. To me, I think that there is a deal to be made there, but I just don't see the impetus to make the deal from any source right now. So I encourage that to happen. And if you all agree, I encourage you as leaders in the S-scale market and 164th market to try to make something like that happen, because I do think there's a deal to be made there.
Well, I could say from Motrak, the S-scaler, my client, has increased about 50% from 2 years ago. I sell a lot of S-scale structure kits. Now, when I go to shows like the one in Atlanta, Georgia, there's an S gauge group that's set up, and they will not buy any laser cut kits. They like the the old stuff, American Flyer stuff.
Yeah, Plasticville, like I say, it's like, it's straight up flyer and Plasticville buildings. And, it's, again, that's your hobby. You have at it, but it's not what I'm doing. It's not what Mike's doing. So
Hey,
it's not what Tony's
Jeff,
doing.
I have promoted your company with quite a few outside of the model railroad world in the 164 scale modeling overall. And I know a few of them have purchased models from you. And I know on your end, it doesn't look any different than the regular model railroaders making the purchases. But, it is that outside group, because for the farm toy world, we're finding the building kits and stuff and then updating them as we can to get what we need.
Right.
And, that could be where you're starting to see your increases actually from outside of the model railroading world in the 164 scale model.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, listen, guys, thanks so much for being here tonight. I really do appreciate your time and your comments. And I think you've done a great job in trying to present the S-scale situation. And I really do appreciate you being here tonight. Any of you have any final word?
I would say, S-scale, you come for the trains, you stay for the family. Stay for the people.
Mike? Tony?
Oh, I just hope things keep growing and
There you go.
that it keeps going that way.
Well, thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate it. And everybody else,
That's what I heard about the national in Niagara Falls is like a family reunion.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I think what Mike is saying is that, again, we just had our convention in Buffalo and it's like a family reunion.
Yeah.
So.
Well, guys, thanks so much for being here tonight and really telling us about the S-scale market. I really do appreciate it. And I think we learned a lot. And to everybody else, thank you for being here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. Most importantly, I hope you learned something. I hope you'll join us again. Subscribe to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, and you'll get an email giving you the Zoom login information for each of our shows. If you'd rather visit us on YouTube, we live stream the shows to YouTube. And if you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Tracks Modeling, then you can join us live on there and be a part of the chat because you'll get a notice from YouTube for each one of our future shows. So thank you so much for being here. And until next time, happy modeling. We good, Phil?
We're good. Yeah, no, you can just, we can kick into the after show if we want to, or we can call it depending on what people want.
Yeah, whatever people want, absolutely. We still recording or we through with that?
I can stop the recording now if we want to. The Zoom recording, we're still live on YouTube.
Okay. It's up to you all. If anybody's got any more comments, they'd like to talk about, or
I'd like to reply to Phil's comment in the text.
Okay.
Phil,
Yeah.
the farm model group we're purchasing groups and would purchase up to a full train, but they're not going to build. More than likely, the bulk of them won't be building a full layout. They're working on integrating into their dioramas. But at the same token, a lot of guys, after they do their dioramas for their shows, want to do something larger with them overall, which would put them integrating them together to do a layout. Chris Steeb, who is a 2-time National Farm Toys Show winner, a 3-time or 4-time Lafayette Farm Toy Small Display winner, a multi-time St. Louis Farm Toy Show Display winner. He is doing the full town and surrounding area of the fictional Redlands, Oklahoma, and currently has 8 or 9 modules that'll all be integrated together when he gets his house finished in Oklahoma, and he will have a full S-scale operating layout when it's all said and done, that these modules integrate. There are NMRA master modelers in 1/64 scale model railroading that have their master modeling, or in 1/64 scale farm toys that have their master modeling in HO scale, because the stuff that they need to do it in S scale is not available to do the time periods that they want to do. It's not that they don't want to do it in S scale. It's that the support in the time frame that they want to do it is not available.
I think the point I was making was much more just a pure economic one from a manufacturer's perspective. Is if you think about the value of a model railroader to the manufacturing community, especially from the train perspective, not from necessarily a structure perspective, but from a train perspective, a single modeler may buy 5 to 10 engines, may buy 100 to 200 cars. A farm modeler who's got a diorama and from agreed, if there are n number of farm modelers and 50% decide to put a train on their diorama, the number of trains that they will buy, depending on the volume of people, is going to be dramatically lower than if you had the same number of model railroaders. And then if you take the percentage of those that decide to build out a multi-module based solution and therefore extend to an operating railroad, it's going to be a very small percentage. I think sometimes we get excited about getting people to talk to each other when we don't look at the economic realities that I, as a manufacturer, am going to go through. Which, first question is how many farm modelers? There are lots of farm modelers. I'm not sure there are more farm modelers than model railroaders. I mean, you need to have some data to show that. And then the question is, what percentage of those would want and would be building a diorama that justifies having a train on it? Because clearly, if you're building farm models, you're not going to model railroad cars as farm models from an object perspective. It's more just on the diorama. So it's what percentage of those modelers build dioramas versus build tractors. And then of that percentage, what percentage wants a train on their diorama? And those are the people who are going to buy 1 or 2 cars. And then you've got what percentage of those people want it. By the time you get down to it, you're going to be down to a really small number. I think there's this thought process that there's this great synergy in adding 1 and 1 is going to be 3. And sometimes adding 1 and 1 is just 2. So that was my point. And it's a pure reality of the business world point, that when folks look to invest, that's the thought process you've got to go through is, is that really going to increase my market size dramatically? And that was all I was getting to, just to bring some realism into it.
I have a realism for you here, Phil. We had a group of farm toy modelers go to Woodland Scenics with the monetary backing to have Woodland Scenics upscale their available figures to S scale. And Woodland Scenics, under no uncertain circumstances, told the farm modelers that Flyer is dead. They had no interest in doing it because a lot of major manufacturers believe that all S scale is Flyer. Now, they ignore the rest of the 1/64 scale modeling groups.
So again, I think, again, what you just did was you dramatically demonstrated what I said was true. Even with financial encouragement, they couldn't be encouraged to invest in that.
They didn't. It wasn't just financial. It was the modelers, the farm modelers brought the numbers. They brought proven paperwork to Woodland Scenics. And the Woodland Scenics representative said flyer is dead because that's how they picture S-scale. That's how a lot of
yeah, I don't know, and but that's another issue altogether. I was actually talking this very specific issue of, if you look at it, if I look at it from the perspective of Woodland Scenics is probably a good model, and you say, okay, they have a pretty good idea of the volume they get in HO scale figures and the volume they get in O scale figures, because they sell both of those. So they know what the volume is, and they know probably a pretty good idea of what the current number of model railroaders is that generates that volume. What they didn't find was a persuasive case that there's enough S there and in the farm community to justify the investment. That's all I was saying. I'm actually in many ways saying I think that the problem you're running into is one that's not just perception, it's the economics.
As far as figures go, surely 3D printing comes into its own there. There is a whole series of smaller 3D printers in the railroad game who can do you figures across multiple scales very, very easily. If it's figures you're after, I'd argue that perhaps approaching one of the 3D figure manufacturers may be a better bet than Woodland Scenics.
John's onto something really interesting, because
that is this current date and age. That's the reason there are so many smaller 3D printing figure manufacturers out there currently, is because of the other 1/64 scale modeling groups.
Yeah,
because companies like Woodland Scenics, when this was before 3D printing exploded, that they went to Woodland Scenics, so 10 years ago or something, or
yeah.
It wasn't
Look,
even 10 years ago, less than
I
10
know that there is at least one local firm in Australia who does figures in every darn scale from HO to G.
Mm-hmm. And then you go online.
And yes, they're available online, and our dollar's 30% cheaper than yours.
Well, and then you go online and you look, and there's, hundreds of manufacturers in Indonesia and stuff selling figures online and making a killing on them. In the last 4 months, I have sold $3,000 worth of 1/64 scale figures that I printed. Because that's what came out, that I drew them up for myself and I showed them off, and I have sold that many figures because that's what's available.
Yeah.
And the major manufacturers, they're losing out on that market because they don't believe the market's there. Because
in which case it's their loss and your gain.
It currently is, yes, very much so. And I'm not complaining about that. But what I'm saying is that the other manufacturers believe that, they just focus on the model railroading half of it and not the rest of the 1/64 scale modeling group. And they just see that flyer is dead, and they ignore the rest of the scale. And the rest of the scale is what's buying the stuff.
I'd also argue that there is a market offshore that's being missed by the US of S-scale modelers, because 3-foot 6-inch gauge is modelled in S-scale quite actively in Australia and New Zealand. And I'll bet it's modelled in South Africa as well, using S-scale.
I would say, John, you're not the only S-scale modeler from Australia that I've talked to in the last.
No, I'm not. I'm not an S-scaler. I'm a rubber gauge, but S is one of the few that I'm not in.
Well, modeler in general from Australia. I actually have a really close friend down in New South Wales that models Australia and does has a sugarcane train.
Yeah,
that he's done, because that's what he sees. He has a complete town that he's done.
Yep.
and surrounding farm community that he's done, and does beautiful work. And he says the same thing that I've reiterated in this. It's like the major manufacturers aren't out there. You have to buy everything from small specialty guys, and not a major manufacturer, because the major manufacturers ignore the scale.
That's the way you grow the modeling industry. You support the smaller guys to grow to be bigger guys.
I cannot argue with that part of it.
So it's just a thought. If you're after 1/64 stuff, take a look at some of the stuff that might be available in SN42. Not just necessarily the trains, but some of the ancillary stuff that's around those trains. You might be pleasantly surprised. I'm not saying there's a lot out there, there's not. But it's just possible that you might find some stuff that you might be after that can't be got from anywhere else. And that's probably enough for me for the time being.
And so, yeah, you talk about stuff that isn't available, kind of like this that I'm working on right now. This is going on one of the national, I don't know if I can get the dang thing turned around. The workbench is definitely a workbench. But so this is S scale. It did not start out as S scale because it isn't available, but it's S scale.
That's nice modeling regardless of scale.
I needed to make a feed mill for a guy in S, and believe it or not, this started out as HO scale. It was one of the Pike Stuff kit basher series, and then some 3D printed S scale doors, and Walther's HO scale grain leg with S scale 3D printed platforms, and that's what it takes to get a mill built for a grain mill. It's not quite done yet, but it's getting there. I broke down, we needed doors that weren't pitchy. We needed modern entry doors to update some of these beautiful kits like Jeff has available. So I designed and 3D printed modern entry doors.
They look nice. Ooh, I like that one.
Seconded. That looks very nice.
Well, they weren't available anywhere, so I designed them and 3D printed them, and they drop in the same as a Tichy or Grant line.
Yeah. Well, I guess I need to make one then. I can make those.
Stuff like that. They say that like was said or asked, do we feel S scale is a modeler scale? Well, it's got to be, because the stuff isn't available pre-built. You don't really have a choice. I can't go down the local hobby store and pick up a pre-built structure in S scale. It doesn't exist. So, but yeah,
would that be a market?
There is. Now I've voiced this to other people, and see how do I want to put this? The farm toy model, the farm toy modelers, the die cast modelers that are doing displays, which there's a large market of both of those. They model modern. They don't model turn of the century. They don't model 1930s, 40s. pretty much everything is post-World War. You know, stuff you go outside. Yeah, my house is ugly. It's a 1975 prefab that was moved in 4 pieces, but it's what they want because it's what they see every day, and that's what they model.
Yeah.
You know, so like the older structures like you do some beautiful structures that I've turned guys onto, and then I've gone and I've sold them modern doors. Because, you know, the structure is still around, but it's been updated. It's had newer windows put in, it's had newer doors put in.
Yes.
So that's what they've needed is an update kit for, you know, one of your structures. You know, like you do a beautiful turn of the century farmhouse. That's one, I forget who made it. It was a beautiful 2-story Sears and Roebuck style house. Absolutely gorgeous. 90% of the farm toy modelers have that house on one of their displays because it's what's available, what's accurate, what looks really good. And they've all had the same gripe. It needs updated. It needed newer doors and windows because it looked turn of the century. It looked like something that could still be on the farm, but it needed update.
Right.
And they have it because it's all that was available. You know, there's guys that want, and when I say guys, I don't mean just 1 or 2. I mean 50 to 100 plus that want, you know, the prefab houses like this ugly one that I live in. That's just a 1960s, 1970s prefab ranch house, you know, with a 2-stall attached garage on. And I know this because I scratch built one for Chris Steve for his 2020 National Farm Toy Display. I've had 50 phone calls for it, want me to build them for guys. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. I don't have a laser cutter. I cut everything by hand on that thing. I'm not going to build 50 of that house.
So guys, real quickly, I need to cut in. I'm going to go ahead for anybody on the YouTube channel. I'm going to go ahead and turn the YouTube off. Thank you for joining us. Please go to newtracksmodeling.com and subscribe there, and then you'll get invites